Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Israel is disappointed over Russia-Hamas meeting. Iranian opposition criticizes the government's executions, and Afghan opium production declines due to a mysterious disease. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
Israel has criticized Russian President Dmitry Medvedev's meeting with Khaled Mishal, the head of the Hamas political bureau in Damascus.
In addition, Israel strongly rejected calls by Medvedev and his Turkish counterpart Abdullah Gül for Hamas's involvement in the peace process.
Hamas sources said that the Medvedev-Mishal meeting constitutes an international recognition of the movement as an influential factor in the equation of the conflict.
From Turkey, the Russian president elected to launch his Mideast peace process agenda. Dmitry Medvedev called for the inclusion of all sides in the peace process in reference to the Hamas movement.
In order to reach a settlement, all sides must be allowed to participate in the peace process. We shouldn't exclude anyone.
Medvedev's call was reiterated by his Turkish host, but in a clearer statement.
We value Mitchell's effort in the Middle East. However, they are not enough. No one should be excluded from the peace process. Hamas won the elections, so it cannot be ignored. We should not launch the peace process by excluding certain groups.
What's notable is that the Russian president's call comes one day after he visited the Syrian capital, Damascus. During the visit, Medvedev met behind closed doors with Khaled Mishal, the head of the Hamas political bureau. The meeting was also attended by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Despite the fact that Mishal has visited Moscow 3 times, including his last visit in February, his meeting with the Russian president was unprecedented. Hamas sources said the meeting constitutes an international recognition of the movement as an influential factor in the equation of the conflict, a position that was not shared by the other side of the equation. This news comes after Israel criticized the Medvedev-Mishal meeting. In a statement issued by its foreign ministry, Israel expressed deep disappointment over the meeting. Israel also rejected Medvedev's call for engaging Hamas in the peace process, reiterating its accusations of terrorism. However, it remains to be seen whether the latest developments in the region will bring about any tangible changes on the ground.
And Foreign Minister Victor Lieberman says Israel has not agreed to freeze construction in East Jerusalem. Speaking at a press conference in Tokyo, Lieberman stressed that Jerusalem is a united city open to all, Jews, Christians and Muslims, and it will remain that way in the future. Lieberman also revealed that North Korean weapons found on a plane in Bangkok last December were bound for Hamas and Hezbollah, those terror groups. The foreign minister said that North Korea, Syria and Iran are now cooperating as a new axis of evil and pose the greatest threat to world security because they are building and spreading weapons of mass destruction.
We saw this kind of cooperation only 2 or maybe 3 months ago with a North Korean plane in Bangkok with huge numbers of different weapons with intention to smuggling these weapons to Hamas and to Hezbollah. And of course the missiles program of Iran and in Syria, all of these programs with crucial assistance from the North Korea side.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, the man described as the best-known criminal lawyer in the United States and the most visible defender of Israel in the world, is in Israel to receive 2 honorary doctorates. Last night, Dershowitz dined with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who reportedly repeated his offer to the Harvard professor to serve as Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. Interestingly, Dershowitz told me this morning, he hasn't yet said no.
You know, I can't really comment on that. I can only say this. I have been enormously honored by the reports of having been asked to serve as Israel's ambassador to the UN. Nothing would give me more pleasure. I would just love to do it. I think I would do a good job at it. The problem, and it's one I'm mulling over, the problem is one of false accusations of dual loyalty. After all, what would happen if, for example, the United States and Israel were to clash at the UN over Iran? I would be perceived as having changed sides. The concept of me as a supporter of Israel, I support Israel in the United States because I think it's good for American policy. I'm an American first, and to become an Israeli citizen would pose a challenge. I would like to continue to serve informally as one of Israel's lawyers in the court of public opinion.
في الأزمة الداخلية الإيرانية انتقد الزعيم الإصلاحي مير حسين موسوي سياسة
Iranian reformist leader Mir Hussein Mousawi criticized the politics of the Iranian government by describing both its internal and external fronts as unreasonable and unbalanced, saying that it increased the number of Iran's enemies abroad. Mousawi believes that reconciling with the Iranian nation and yielding to the willpower of its people is the solution to Iran's internal and external crises, and not a dinner hosted by New York for Security Council members at the expense of Iran's honor. During a meeting with some of the freed detainees, Mousawi said that the status quo in the region requires the government to close its Evin prison. He also called on the government to hold free elections to resolve the problems facing the nation and urged it to stop exporting its internal crisis to Israel and the world.
Following the condemnations issued by Mir Hussein Mousawi and his wife, reformist leader Mehdi Karoubi condemned the latest executions of 5 Iranian youth. Karoubi said that the executions were unfair and lacked legal justification. He added that he never thought that the day would come when the Islamic Republic, its foundation which he fought hard for, would carry such ugly and inhumane acts, in contradiction with Islamic and generally accepted principles. Karoubi also condemned the latest remarks issued by Golan Hossein Elham, member of the Iranian Guardian Council, who was accused of rigging the presidential election. Elham said in a statement that Mousawi has become an apostate warrior and deserves the death penalty. In a related development, commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, Mohammad Ali Jafari, issued a warning to the reformists and those he referred to as outside enemies ahead of the first anniversary of the disputed elections. Jafari's warning was ignored by reformist leaders who continued to fire back intensely. In a clear reference to the Vilayat-e Faqih, known as the guardianship of the Islamic jurists, and in reference to Ali Khamenei, former Iranian president Mohammad Khatami said that if absolute power falls into the hands of a few people without accountability, it will lead to grave mistakes and corruption. Khatami's statement came during a meeting with members of Iran's city councils. He added that monitoring the ruler will protect him from deviating and abusing his power. Khatami also called for the return to the constitution and the implementation of its articles. After being warned by the Revolutionary Guards to distance himself from the reformists, the head of the Iranian Expediency Council, Hashmi Rafsanjani, met with young activists from the reformist blocs, including former detainees. Rafsanjani warned against the ongoing crackdown, saying the arrests of young activists will lead to the expansion of the circle of awareness and opposition among the general public. He said that victory, in the end, will be achieved by those who bear the burden of detention and hardship. Najib Muhammad Ali, Al Arabiya.
دخان بلا نار في الكويت وضجة تفتقد الطبول والأيدي القارعة والضاربة.
It's a case of smoke without fire and noise without drums. This is how most Kuwaitis are describing the dismantling of an alleged spy cell working for Iran and Kuwait.
أو سادس أو جيش من الطوابير. الكويتيون يقولون نعم
Is there a fifth or sixth column in Kuwait? Some Kuwaitis say yes, maybe in reference to the Chechens, Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, or al-Zarqawi groups in Iraq and Pakistan.
في العراق وباكستان.
The story continues to make headlines in Kuwait. We must be vigilant about such political propaganda in order to preserve unity. A poet once said, "The one who opens a door closes it, and the one who sets a fire extinguishes it." The spy cell in Kuwait is fabrication is today's title of our program, dubbed Under the Ashes. Let's watch the following report.
لم تنتهي فصولا بعد ما زعمته إحدى الصحف الكويتية
The last episode of the so-called Iran spy cell story that surfaced in a Kuwaiti newspaper continues to unfold. Al-Qabas Daily has claimed that a spy cell working on behalf of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards has been dismantled in Kuwait. The news was widely condemned by the Kuwaiti public and officials. Senior Kuwaiti officials dismissed the claims and described the newspaper report as media rhetoric aimed to stir tension and strain relations between Kuwait and its friends.
أعرب الناطق الرسمي باسم الحكومة الكويتية وزير المواصلات وزير الدولة.
Meanwhile, Kuwaiti government spokesman and communication minister Mohammed al-Basri expressed regret over the way in which the media dealt with the espionage case, which is a national security issue according to him. Al-Basri further said that the case was built on inaccurate information attributed to high-ranking security officials. He also dismissed all the statements and remarks that have been attributed to officials.
كما كشف مصدر مسؤول في وزارة الداخلية الكويتية
The Kuwaiti Interior Ministry source has dismissed reports that several suspects have been arrested by the Ministries of Interior and Defense in connection with the so-called spy cell case. The source added that his ministry has not issued any charges against any suspects in a case that is being described as the dismantling of a terrorist cell and the seizure of its documents.
استوحيت بعد التهديدات التي وصلت إلى مطار الكويت قبل أسبوعين.
In addition, the source said that the notion of the spy cell started to surface after an alert was issued by Kuwait's airport 2 weeks ago. Meanwhile, Speaker of the Kuwaiti National Assembly, Jassim al-Qurafi, praised the relations between his country and Iran. Al-Qurafi declined to comment on the case, but wished that his government would issue a statement soon. In Tehran, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ramin Mehmanparast said that the allegations are unfounded and they aim to divert attention from the real threat in the region, namely the threat of the Zionist regime. Kuwaiti politicians believe that the case was fabricated for political gains by certain radical groups whose affiliations and objectives are known.
Spanish Foreign Minister Miguel Moratinos has expressed hope of easing tension between Israel and neighbors Lebanon and Syria. Moratinos held talks with Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak in West Jerusalem before traveling to Ramallah in the occupied West Bank for talks with Palestinian leaders. The Spanish minister, who held talks in Damascus and Lebanon, said after meeting Barak that he was working with the parties to reduce tension and get a peaceful solution. And as Israel and the Palestinian Authority continued the US-backed indirect talks, Barak said he was optimistic the shuttle diplomacy would lead onto direct negotiations.
We are opening the proximity talks and we all expect them to develop into fully fledged direct negotiations within short time frame in order to make sure that whatever could be done in order to break the deadlock will happen and will materialize.
The Spanish Foreign Minister later held meetings with Palestinian Prime Minister Salam Fayyad and Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki. Spain, which holds the rotating European Union presidency, is leading EU efforts for a breakthrough in the talks between the Palestinians and Israel. Moratinos said the so-called proximity talks were within the guidelines set by the United States.
We must respect the parameters that the American administration have presented in order to achieve the new peace effort. And these are the conditions that I have been given from the international community and the European Union. The aim is to push through from the moment the conditions that are met in order for the negotiations could be carried out successfully.
A roadside bomb killed 5 Iraqi police officers and wounded 23 others near a market in the capital, Baghdad. Police said insurgents threw a body in front of a store in the Sharla district of Baghdad to lure passers-by and then detonated a bomb at the store in an attempt to cause more casualties. Police said the attack carried the hallmarks of insurgents such as Al-Qaeda, who often target crowded civilian areas. In the southern city of Basra, security forces said they discovered a large weapons cache following a search operation near an industrial area. The cache, which included hundreds of bombs, rockets, and large quantities of explosives, came after a tip-off from a civilian.
يأتي هذا بينما تواصلت الاعتقالات الممنهجة إذ اعتقلت القوات الحكومية 19 شخصاً.
Government forces continue their systematic arrests, the latest of which was of 19 allegedly wanted people in Al-Qadisiyah province. Joint government and military forces arrested 15 people in Heat in the province of Al-Anbar during a wide-ranging raid and search operation. According to a report by the occupation forces, government forces and the police, backed by air support from the occupation, conducted a wide-ranging raid and search operation in Heat that included homes and mosques in industrial areas, cemeteries, deserted areas, farms, and even government institutions, and arrested 19 people.
وأسفرت عن اعتقال المذكورين. وفي السياق نفسه اعتقلت قوات الأمن الحكومية 4 أشخاص في عملية.
Meanwhile, government forces arrested 4 people in a joint security operation with the American occupation forces in eastern Mosul, the center of Nineveh province.
في هذه الأثناء أظهرت معلومات جديدة كشفت عنها منظمات حقوقية.
New reports by human rights organizations and the families of prisoners indicate that most prisoners who have been detained in secret prisons were detained 4 years ago during the first 5 months of al-Maliki's term.
يوما بعد يوم تتكشف جرائم الأجهزة الحكومية التابعة لرئيس الوزراء الحالي المنتهي ولايته نور المالكي ضد
The crimes committed by the government and Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, whose term in office ended, are being exposed every day. These crimes were committed against innocent Iraqis who have been brutally treated by the occupation and al-Maliki's government. According to new reports by human rights organizations and the families of the detainees, most of the prisoners detained in secret government prisons were detained 4 years ago. This means that they were imprisoned during the first 5 months of al-Maliki's term. The families of the detainees said that they held funeral processions for their sons who went missing, only to realize that they were kidnapped by militias in Baghdad 4 years ago. It turned out that they had been held in secret government prisons this entire time. According to legal experts, the detention of any person for any period of time without granting them their right to be tried in a court, torturing them, and denying them their human rights is considered to be a crime against humanity. These crimes are punishable offenses under Iraq's constitution and international law. Political observers called for exerting efforts to have the violators punished in accordance with the law. These violators have destroyed Iraqi families and their social fabric by arresting fathers and sons without charging them of any crime. The government also failed to provide any information about the detained individuals for more than 4 years. Legal measures have been taken against the government after the American press and Human Rights Watch reported on the secret al-Muthanna prison. Prisoners were tortured and threatened with their spouses being brought to the prison also. Nouri al-Maliki renovated these prisons after American forces discovered them. Torture was taking place in Al-Jazeera and Al-Nasur Square, which belonged to his predecessor Ibrahim al-Jafari. The scandal of al-Muthanna prison confirmed reports by human rights organizations that indicated last year that 140,000 Iraqis were kidnapped and killed. They were killed during different periods of time in different regions of Iraq during the reign of al-Maliki. It seems that al-Maliki wanted to send a message to the Iraqis that whoever is not with him is against him.
The head of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime said a fungus which hit Afghan puppies may cause opium production to decline by 25%. Antonio Maria Costa said that the fungus has infected almost half of the puppies in Helmand and Kandahar in the southern part of the country where they are heavily planted.
أكثر من 90% من الأفيون على مستوى العالم مصدره نبات الخشخاش الذي يزرع في أفغانستان.
More than 90% of the world's heroin comes from opium poppies planted in Afghanistan before getting smuggled to Europe and the United States. Opium is transformed in these countries to the potent drug heroin. Without a doubt, opium poppies that are heavily planted in Afghanistan's southern provinces are the main source of income for armed groups, which are concentrated in the south, especially the Taliban.
لكن الإنتاج الأفغاني من الأفيون هذا العام قد يشهد تراجعا بنحو الربع.
However, opium production this year may decline by 25%. According to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, about half of the country's opium crops have been infected. The UN Office believes that the decline in opium production will translate into a decrease in the income of armed groups, some of which own large opium fields.
ويعتقد بعض المزارعين الأفغان أن قوات الناتو التي كثيرا ما تشن حملات ملاحقة عسكرية للمسلحين.
Some Afghan farmers believe that NATO forces, which have been launching many armed operations against armed groups in the south, spread the fungus in the opium fields that cause poppy flowers to die.
وفي الوقت نفسه طالب المسؤولون الأمميون.
However, the UN said that NATO has no connection to the phenomenon and demanded that the international community take advantage of this opportunity by compensating opium farmers for their financial losses as a way to convince them to stop growing opium.
ابن 14 من عمره أنشأ
14-year-old Yazan Kalada started his own radio station in a small bedroom and called it Radio Kalada. This private radio station, which can be heard online, airs Arab and Western songs. Yazan receives calls on his cellular phone from children his age requesting various songs. It is the success story of a child who has the ambition of being in the Guinness Book of World Records. Our correspondent Salwa Al-Sawalka reports from Amman.
سلوى السوالقة.
مرحبا واهلا وسهلا بكم اعزائي المستمعين، معكم يزن فراندي من وراء المايك، ويمكنكم التواصل معنا على 037.
بصوته الطفولي يبث يزن.
With his youthful voice, Yazan talks to his audience through his online radio, Radio Kalada. Yazan started this radio station as a way to stay in touch with his friends and share various songs with them. All of this is accomplished in his small room. He doesn't need any wires or control rooms. He only uses a computer, voice equipment, a microphone, and a cellular phone.
I got the idea when I was chatting on the messenger with my friends. When we used to chat with one another, they would ask me to share songs with them. I did that through the messenger, but then I started thinking about giving everyone an opportunity to listen to these songs instead of just one person. I found a website that has a player with a code. I took the code and used it in a specific program, and then I started airing songs.
يناقش يزن عبر إذاعته عشرات المواضيع التي تهم أبناء جيله.
Yazan talks about dozens of issues affecting his generation. He receives calls from people of all ages requesting songs.
عبر موقع الإذاعة على الشبكة العنكبوتية.
I'm calling from Amman. I would like to dedicate a song to my parents in Dubai. The name of the song is Dubai Resident.
Dubai Resident for Fadi al-Mazari.
Yazan hopes to have a real radio station with its own frequency.
I hope to build a real radio station with a signal. I also hope to enter the Guinness Book of World Records.
في المدرسة.
Yazan receives a great deal of encouragement at school from his teachers and classmates. Yazan is well known and liked in his school, which makes him proud.
He plays the songs that we request. This is really nice.
Yazan, who is still a child, started his own radio station. It's a success story for a child who wants to make a difference. Salwa Sawaka, Dubai Television, Amman.
Well, Srinagar, the summer capital of Indian-administered Kashmir, is among the dirtiest cities in India. In fact, it's the fourth dirtiest city. Shahar Abad takes a closer look at the issue and the consequences left for the people that are living there.
Kashmir may be known as the Switzerland of the East and paradise on earth, but its summer capital, Srinagar, is the fourth dirtiest city in India, according to sanitation ratings by the Urban Development Ministry. The city of lakes, gardens and hills has scored a mere 17.17 on a scale of 100 in the National Rating and Award Scheme for Sanitation for Indian cities. Srinagar ranks 420th among the 423 cities in India.
Srinagar Municipal Corporation, through 2,000 employees, they are managing 320 metric tons of garbage on day-to-day basis. At the moment, there is no recycling within the garment sector. Some incinerators have been installed in the hospitals, but that is making the things ash, not recycling.
Although many in the region readily blame the government for not providing proper facilities, others say sanitation is a collective responsibility and that everyone should pitch in with efforts to keep the environment clean.
First of all, we, the people who is responsible for all of this mess, and then partly the government. We as in people, we don't want to come out of that shell. And when it comes to the government, lack of facilities, yes, definitely. Management, poor management.
Every day, thousands of metric tons of garbage is collected from around the summer capital. But as there are no dumping grounds or recycling facilities, it is left to rot in the open air. The stink and the sight of garbage scattered across vast areas around the city is enough to put many tourists away. Moreover, as there are no sewage treatment works, the raw sewage is dumped into the freshwater lakes, which were the main tourist attraction of the state. Experts believe such conditions would lead to more environmental hazards and will take a heavy toll on the health of people.
This valley was famous for clean waters. Even though we have plenty of water, but that is not in a condition to be used for domestic purpose. So when we don't have potable water, when we don't have drinking water, proper drinking water, then it will affect the survival of the society, survival of the people.
The rating of cities with regard to their performance in sanitation improvements was based on a set of objective indicators of outputs, processes and outcomes. The award is based on the premise that improved public health and environmental standards are the two outcomes that cities must try to provide for their residents. Any sustainable environmental improvement requires broader changes in perceptions and lifestyle of people. But as experts say, without government commitment and investment, no major change can be expected. So for a long time, garbage in Kashmir will continue to fester and lakes will get more polluted.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news. Read our blog. Get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.